Back in 1984, I read my first book by Thomas Merton on contemplative prayer. Ever since then, the regular practice of centering prayer has been one of the most effective tools I have for exploring my relationship with God and for discovering my true self. Years of sitting in silence has helped me to become more adept at observing who I am and who I should be. I have become more compassionate towards my scarred and wounded self, who seeks redemption and healing. And in return, I have acted with more compassion towards those I minister to. When I explore my inner dialogue with God, troubling emotions between the connection of my inner and outer self can come to the surface. Contemplation provides a place where I can bring this messiness to a peaceful center. From that peaceful center, I derive my strength for service, especially to those in my immediate circles, my family, my friends, my parish. The silence of centering prayer helps me to take delight in those little movements in life where I suspend all my rushing around to enjoy a conversation with a good friend, or the surprise of new blooms on the flowers in my garden, or the simple sounds of a goldfinch splashing in a fountain. However, centering prayer is not just some kind of self-help trick or a psychological tool for self-improvement. The ultimate goal of centering prayer is spending time in silence in the presence of God. The more we connect with this divine stillness, the more our false self, which impedes our spiritual progress, is revealed. Every session of meditation or contemplative prayer is like a mini death. We let go of our interior dialogue, the one that feeds our fears, wants, needs, preferences, daydreams, and fantasies. And we start to trust ourselves to a deeper aliveness. Slowly, that tendency of the mind to be constantly occupied by its own physical well-being becomes still. And our prayer brings us closer to that deeper silence we need to get in touch with our spiritual well-being. Our ego is no longer the dominating force holding us together as the mercy of God's presence starts to reveal our true self. We must learn to let go of who we think we are in order for God to reveal who we should be. When we enter into the silence and the stillness of contemplative prayer, we are actively participating in the death and resurrection of Christ. For 20 minutes or so, we let go of life, and yet life remains. Something else besides our own importance holds us and carries us in our prayer. We gradually come to trust that this something will carry and hold us throughout life, especially when we come to the hour of our death. To experience this, to really know that our true selves live and are upheld and bound within our experience of God's presence, is the beginning of resurrected life. The resurrected life becomes real when we start to see and put into practice the higher laws of the kingdom of heaven. When we follow the teachings of Christ, we pierce the armor we have built up to protect our fragile ego. The more we develop and practice a centering prayer, the more stable our connection becomes with the God who made us. We begin to see that our spiritual identity, our sense of who we really are, is intimately connected to our spiritual awareness. Change comes with a regular practice of contemplation. We will find that our politics change. The way we spend our free time will be called into question. Our smug social and economic perspectives will slowly be taken away. When we practice prayer consistently, the things that we think of as necessary begin to fall away. We begin to see how transitory and unhelpful they really are. Then the foundation of our job, our marriage, our friendships are built upon our saying yes to God. We find it necessary to say no to injustice, prejudice, and abuse. Everything that comes into conflict with Jesus' law of love becomes even clearer and more urgent in the silence of our prayer. Our life and our work have a chance of witnessing to God's pure healing instead of our own impure anger and selfish agenda. It is hard to let go of the lies, misconceptions, and blindness that has propped us up for most of our lives. It takes time and it takes effort. And we will only be able to do it if we allow Jesus to hold us during the process, to let him take away our fear of letting it go. If we trust God as Father, Son, and Spirit, we can start to live our lives with a new vitality. It would no longer be us who act alone, but the life of the Trinity who lives in us, acting for us and with us, guiding our actions for compassion and justice in the world.